Police say they have their man in the murder of 4 University of Idaho students. We're taking a look at some of the biggest pieces of evidence laid out in the probable cause affidavit and seeing where the defense might be able to poke some holes. Law & Crime Daily, covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome, everybody, to Law & Crime Daily. I'm Jesse Weber. The man accused of stabbing 4 young college students to death is sitting behind bars in an Idaho jail. This as his public defender and prosecutors from Latah County prepare for what's sure to be a very long legal process. Since Kohberger's arrest in Pennsylvania a week ago and the release of the probable cause document on his return to Idaho, we have learned more about the investigation into the quadruple murder. Law enforcement sources told CNN that the Hyundai Elantra that Kohberger was driving was cleaned from top to bottom by the suspect. During surveillance of his parents' in Pennsylvania home and Kohberger's movements, sources told the media outlet that the 28-year-old doctoral student was seen wearing surgical gloves. Investigators believe Kohberger killed Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin inside of a rented home not far from the University of Idaho campus. At the time of the murders, Kohberger was studying at Washington State University, which is just a few miles away from the crime scene. When the semester was over, he and his father took a road trip across the United States in that very Hyundai Elantra back to Pennsylvania. I'm joined by my co-hosts and legal analyst, public defender Bryan Buckmeyer, former trial attorney Terry Austin. All 3 of us have had a chance to look over this affidavit, and while there is a lot of evidence against Kohberger, it's not as airtight as people might think. Bryan, you're a defense attorney. Where do you see the problems?
All right, I'll start with the first one. The pinging of the phone associated with Kohberger is strong evidence, but it isn't without holes that the defense can argue. Using cell towers to track a suspect is a common practice amongst police officers and can be very helpful, but when you start digging a little deeper, doubt may grow. Whether it's reasonable is up for the jury to decide. Cell phone towers can have a radius of up to 25 miles. Many, especially in urban areas, can pinpoint a person's phone to a closer than a mile because there are so many towers in a given area. Kohberger's phone pinged off the towers that's in the area of the murders. That could be only maybe 5 to 10 miles radius or maybe less. And when the school is 7 to 8 miles away, that doesn't tell us much. In terms of the path of the vehicle, that's more art than science. As the officer himself says, he knows the path and he deduced which way it would go, but what if there are other roads? We know that people from the WSU also go to Moscow to party, so going there 12 times could have an innocent explanation.
You know what, Bryan, I actually think the cell phone data coupled with the video footage of the white Elantra is plenty to convince a jury that Kohberger is the killer. We know that Kohberger's phone was at his residence at 2:42 on December 13th, and then it traveled south. 5 minutes later, the phone stopped sending signals, meaning that it was either turned off or placed on airplane mode. The phone is then turned back on at 4:48 a.m. In addition to the cell phone evidence, the authorities have corroborating video of Kohberger's white Elantra at the scene of the crime beginning at 3:39 a.m. on the 13th. The car was ultimately seen leaving the student residence at about 4:20 at a high speed of rate. All of this might be circumstantial evidence, but it is enough evidence for the jury to conclude that Kohberger was at the scene of the crime when the murders took place. And the evidence also supports the argument that Kohberger intentionally turned his phone off. And as far as I'm concerned, he's trying to avoid detection, and it's a clear consciousness of his guilt.
All right, Tara, I see that, but that's not the only potential problem I see in this case. The fact that we have an eyewitness, Dylan, of the suspect is huge, and the description could definitely be Kohberger. I think it's fair to say that everyone immediately went to his eyebrows when we heard the report, so let's go there. I'm on the fence. Does Kohberger have thin eyebrows? No, I don't think anyone's going to say that. But does he have bushy eyebrows? Bushy to the point that they would be an identifying feature when a person is wearing a mask? I think that's where reasonable minds can disagree, and that may cause doubt. The prosecution, of course, will parade a picture of him with the bushiest eyebrows, and the defense will get a picture where his eyebrows look thin. He's no Eugene Levy, though. Now, Dylan will be cross-examined on her sobriety that night, how much she slept, the lighting, which could raise more than just questions. But it's not just his appearance, but how she came about it. She was that close to the killer, and he didn't attack her. She was frozen, so scared, but never checked on her friends or called the police for another 8 hours. That may raise a few eyebrows.
You know what, Brian? I do admit that the identification is not foolproof, but it was clear and it was concise. Based on DM's statement, we know that the homicide occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Now remember, DM heard the dog barking, she heard Kaylee say that someone is here, she heard crying sounds, and she heard a male's voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Plus, she saw a person matching Kohberger's general description pass right by her, and like you said, she basically stood in frozen shock. That would give her plenty of time to check him out and know his appearance. So she described his appearance, his approximate height, his weight, his facial hair, and of course, that description could match multiple people, but only one person matching that description drove a white Elantra that was there at the time of the murders. And based on all that, I have very little doubt that he is the suspect.
Well, I don't know what to believe in that ping pong match between you both, but I think we definitely got a good sense of what everything was in that affidavit.